Welcome everybody, or bienvenidos a Just Cause.
Well, hello. I was caught off guard again. Or fakely caught off guard again. Yeah. That's lame, I think. People's like, why does he do that dumb shit?
I feel like we had an earlier shtick that we used to always do, and then we like stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Now that's our shtick.
We just come in just like, huh? What's happening? What are we doing?
I'm gonna go back and watch our old videos and remember what our old shtick was.
We were like super professional. We were
right.
Here's what we're gonna talk about.
That's right. Well, here's what we're gonna talk about today.
Yeah.
Protest.
Sure.
That's weird, right?
Yeah, ain't that something?
No, you know what we used to do? Our episode. What episode is this? I think this is episode.
We did we're in the 20s. We're in the late 20s.
Yeah, I think so too.
Let's just say I say early 30s.
Oh, okay, let's say episode 30.1.
That's cool. I'm with that. 30.1.
No, but we wanted to talk about protests because I feel like we've been getting a lot of shit. For
man.
Protesting.
Me too. Not that I give a flying fuck. I don't think I should have said that.
That's kind of.
My bad. That was kind of crude, man. No, for real though. Like I don't care. I know John doesn't give a damn either about people not liking that we protest. But
But some people, there are people. There are doubters out there.
Yeah, they don't think it works.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I wanted to open with.
What's that? All right, ready?
No, I just wanted to welcome all our haters today.
Oh.
Because
ain't that's a
I feel like
trip.
Basically the people who watch this are haters, CSPD, city officials, people trying to use things against us.
Yeah,
but
and then
you know what? I don't care.
A couple of our friends.
Yeah, a couple of our friends.
That got our back.
But they're fixing our algorithm because our videos get recommended all the time by YouTube now. So I just want to thank you haters and CSPD out there for helping out with the algorithm. Yeah.
Because they're definitely, so anyway, I guess we talk to the cops on here. So the fact that they listen I guess it's not like, oh my God.
Right, that's true.
But it is kind of like,
Don't you have anything better to do?
Yeah, exactly. Like, all right, so what are we doing here? What's happening right now?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we've been at with this thing. And then we're like, man, we just want to talk about why. Like, just kind of remind everybody, remind ourselves, remind the whole thing, remind ourselves of the whole thing. And there's are very valid reasons why we do this.
Yeah. I think people think it's just like some thing that, whatever. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I like protest. Like, even if it's sometimes stressful, and even if sometimes we get in trouble for it.
Right.
Like, I still think it is a worthwhile thing, and like I study social movements as a scholar. Like, and I know that it's helpful. Like, we wouldn't have so many of the things we have today if it weren't for protest. So the fact that people on the left and the right are like, but why would you do that? You know what I'm saying? It bewilders me.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it goes to show like folks really don't understand what they're doing every day, in life, in the world.
Totally.
Like what they're putting off on shit, they don't get it. You know what I'm saying? Or what other people put off on them that they're having now to deal with, and they're just like, oh, it's life. You know what I'm saying? Got to pray harder. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, God, I guess that was a dickhead thing to say, huh?
Whatever.
My bad, man. But it is true though.
It's like dickheads on the show.
I know, but I don't want to make fun of people that pray because they're going through things. I don't want to do that. But I'm saying that doesn't work. That's what don't work. And it's proven that it don't work. You know what I'm saying? It makes you feel better. It might make you treat the person next to you better. Your world will be more cohesive and whatever it is. But the problem is still gonna be there. Yeah. And we know this, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's like everybody online too is like, oh, thoughts and prayers, like after shootings or whatever.
Right.
And that's become a joke.
And that is their thoughts and prayer, like that is the whole prayer right there.
And I think that's a good point too, though, that politics isn't just talking shit online.
Right.
I'm not denying that is a part of politics. Social media has actually become a very powerful tool for holding people in power to account. But you know, when I teach my social movements section in my regular class, or I teach my social movements class, I often bring this up as a thing when I'm like, first day, I'm like, well, how do you start a movement? And my students are like, well, you could start a hashtag. And so I've had them do experiments where you like try to start a hashtag and get it to trend. It's not that easy.
Yeah, it don't work.
Like,
well, I mean, it does work.
Throw something out there.
Yeah.
I mean, social media, a lot of what we think is like real, like organic shit coming up in social media, it's like, it's corporate.
Right.
It's getting sponsors. They're spending hundreds of dollars on, you know, production and then advertising and things like this. But they're trying to sell it as if it's just like, oh, regular guy has a YouTube channel or whatever.
On.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like there's so much behind it, and so like there's a bit of a misunderstanding among. This is going to be John and Sean's arrogant dickhead show.
Cool.
A bit of a misunderstanding about how politics actually works in our society. Like, a lot of people don't really seem to understand how politics works.
Right. Literally.
Like, they really don't. There's like civics class stuff, right? A lot of us don't understand even like what we learned in 9th grade civics class.
Got you. Okay.
But that's even that's not even the whole story about how politics works. It's like much broader than that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just like, well, I know that there's the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. It's like, yeah, great, okay, fine. That's a thing that exists, right?
Good job.
But there's way more about like how those
let's get to square one.
Function within society and everything like that, right? So like, and protests, especially like in 20th century, 21st century, like world, is part of that politics.
Right.
Like, think about, like, let's just do a thought experiment. Like, the right to vote.
Okay.
You know, most people were excluded from the right to vote when it was written into the U.S. Constitution. Mm-hmm. And how did most of the rest of the people gain the right to vote? Like, in the U.S., just for example.
They wrote sternly worded letters, John.
That's right.
They went and asked for it.
They said, well, I need to contact my representative.
Yeah. No, not exactly.
Who has purposefully alienated me.
Right.
Who wrote a document that purposefully alienated me as a person.
And then go ask them to change it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, that's silly.
Why would it even make sense about saying that to yourself?
Exactly. Exactly. So, you know, and the social movement that we all know about, like the civil rights movement, everybody wants to hold that up as this big thing that happened in society. And it was like, yes, it was an important movement in U.S. society.
Yeah.
But I feel like people learned the wrong lessons from it. And I don't know what those lessons are. Everybody's like, well, you have to be peaceful. Martin Luther King was peaceful.
Yeah.
Or like our friend Mayor Suthers, remember when he was talking on the radio to Lawrence and he said,
he wouldn't.
Well, Martin Luther King never broke any laws.
No, there you go. Yeah. Never broke any laws.
Like, let's just forget about that whole famous essay that he wrote called Letter from a Birmingham Jail.
Yeah.
Like, where he was in jail for protesting illegally.
Right.
Because that's the thing. Protest isn't just and our society, there's this thing called, it's this theory that we live in movement societies now, where we basically like, protest is an everyday part of American politics now, and really like European, American, North American politics, you know?
Yeah.
And so people think it's just like this thing that you do.
So wait a minute. You said that protest is part of politics.
Yeah, this is like
it's a part of it.
Like democracies. Like protest is basically a part of democracies.
Okay.
But people seem to think that means like, so like, you know, when Bush, God, that's where my head's been lately.
Yeah.
It's this Afghanistan thing.
Yeah, man. God damn. That shit is.
So, like, when Trump gets elected, you go out and you march in the streets. You get a permit, you march in the streets, and somehow that's going to do something like...
Create
because
change.
We have this idea that, like, these things created change, but we don't really understand how they created change.
Okay. I completely agree. And then they look at the pictures, you know, look, they put 1 million people in the street and voila, it was done.
Yeah, exactly. If we'll recall, what came of that? Trump was the president for 4 years, right?
Right.
But there is something, and I don't want to completely dismiss that, because Trump struggled with legitimacy throughout his entire 4 years, right? He was basically only seen as legitimate by like a 40% minority of the country.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when millions of people came out in the streets, it allowed people watching that to say, oh, a lot of people don't like this guy. So it legitimized your own feelings of like
right.
disliking him, right? And then, but let's go back to just like the early few months of the Trump years. when he passed the, I don't even remember what it was specifically, wouldn't allow refugees to come into the United States.
Okay, yeah.
Like the refugee ban, I think people were calling it.
Whatever it was,
and
racist
people,
shit.
Yeah, exactly. And people immediately occupied airports. Do you remember that? Does anybody remember that out here? If we go back to 2017, the early months of 2017, and he passed this ban. He passed it, and people just started showing up at airports and protesting, which was something I admittedly had never seen. I was like, wow, this is unique. But people showed up, and they were basically making the airports dysfunctional. The taxi cab drivers went on strike. They were like, I'm not taking anybody out of the airport at, was it JFK or LaGuardia or both?
Wow.
They got rid of that. Not fully, but partially got rid of that ban, right? And it was because they disrupted
the airports.
The airports, which are like really important places of commerce, right?
That's smart, man.
It was smart. I agree. Like, I thought that was a really effective tactic.
And I mean, you know, it's very like, so that's a, what do you call it? That's like a high, that's dangerous. What's the word?
High risk.
Well, high risk. There you go. Like, you know, because it's that instant federal charges and all this stuff.
That's a great point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, but, you know, I feel like, you know, that is where the line is at, right? Where there's people that have the courage or their conviction to go and step out and know that it's going to work, right?
Right.
When you know that you can affect something by changing your action or like trying to alter their action with your action, exactly. You know, there's like a risk to that. You know what I'm saying? But
and risk is part of it. That is an important part of it.
Yeah, because nothing changes without that.
Yes, exactly.
What's the word? The chaos that it creates. You know, right there, right in that quick moment, because then it costs them money. You know what I'm saying? All of these things start happening to them that they're like, okay, that's not worth it. Let's stop that part of the oppression.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Exactly. It became not worth it. It created, and there's lots of different ways you can do that, like the radical environmental movement in the 90s and early 2000s. You know, they protested, and then they got so much grief from the police. It was just like every single one of their protests were getting like just hammered by the police. They're like, you know what? We're moving on to different tactics. They started, you know, basically bombing shit and blowing shit up. Or, you know, bombing shit and burning shit down.
Yeah.
And this happened in Europe too with the peace movement. When the police started cracking down on the police movement, it moved into much more like violent,
like guerrilla shit.
Yeah. Shit, as part of the repression. But that is important. The high risk aspect is important of it because people in positions of power, but also people watching, they see that and they're like, people are putting their shit on the line for this. Like, this must be something meaningful and important to these people, right?
Exactly.
And most people understand that. We talk about this a lot. Like, people understand that there are problems in society, right?
Yeah.
People have all kinds of complaints.
Right.
But the thing is that most people don't do things about it because they don't
know
how. If you go out by yourself, like I've seen so many of those situations where you just see the lone protester out with some crazy ass sign.
And you're like,
what is this guy's deal,
just
right?
Throw my fist, a honk at him.
Yeah. But he hasn't like effectively created a situation in which people feel like they can mobilize around that issue, right? But that's what like high risk protest does. Like holding a sign isn't really that high risk, right?
You know, that's what they want you to do. That's what's okay. That's the right way to do it. You know, with this housing stuff, you know, ever since we got attacked on the street out there, like people's been hitting us up.
Yeah,
they've been hitting me up left and right, man.
Yeah, totally.
And it's like, oh, okay, that's well, first we knew that the march itself wasn't the work, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly.
And we understood that it like what we wanted to get accomplished there, but like the police's reaction to us and like, you know, like brutalizing people out there made other folks looking on the news say, hey, let me call Chinook real quick and talk to home builders. Development companies. There's people that called us and like, hey man, let's talk about this.
People have been facing evictions,
like people all the way to on the other side of it,
like across the spectrum, exactly. Like it became something meaningful to people. And part of the reason we want to talk about this too is because good old Jamie Famos. Not Famos. Fabos. I don't know
how to pronounce your name. Sorry.
You know, she was like, which is again like obviously they're watching what's going on. Like they're like, this is completely like basically she was saying, well, John just had a 4-hour session with lawmakers and all these different people, so why would he go out and protest? And this is a big question for people, like, well, yeah, why would you? We live in a democratic society. What's the point of protest, right? But I can tell you, and this isn't to badmouth the people who put that together. Obviously I like them just fine, but only 4 people from our coalition were invited to that. And this is an important part of what protest does. Protest democratizes politics.
Right.
So if you limit the number of people, if you limit the number of people that can talk to the officials, then you're limiting the number of people that can talk. Like, obviously we all have access to our officials, but when you're acting as an individual, it's not as impactful, right?
Right.
And so
ignore you like they do. Like we all know that they don't pay attention.
And you always hear like, well, we need to hear from a lot of people, right? But typical democratic politics is sort of like identifying leaders and identifying the people who are the change makers or whatever, the representatives, so that the representatives can then go talk to the political representatives, right? But that immediately leaves voices out. Like, it can only be so democratic. And the thing with protests is like, everybody's invited to a protest.
Right.
Nobody's excluded from a protest, right? Sometimes I wish some people were excluded. Like, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I'm like, I wish you weren't here.
Oh, man, I wish that person or those people weren't at that shit.
Yeah, but like that's the thing. When you take action out in the streets, everybody is welcome.
Yeah.
But when you go into and here's the thing, that housing meeting that we went to, it was at the fucking El Pomar Center.
Exactly.
Like, immediately when I got the email saying where it was and I looked on the map, I was like, and I'm like, I can operate in lots of different realms or whatever, but I was like, I don't want to go to this. Like, it became immediately
like, this is pointless.
Well, yeah,
like
and also
going
just
to a
like
LETAC meeting.
Yeah, well, it also just like there was so much class stuff in it. It seemed completely unavailable to anybody that's working class.
Hey, let's come talk about these people and their problems and how we're gonna say that we're gonna fix it.
Yeah, at literally a mansion.
Something happened that I couldn't get there.
I can't remember. Yeah, I remember that you weren't able to make it that morning. But it was like, it was super awkward. And I know it's like, whatever, the space was free or whatever. But the Justice Center just had a renter's rights in the park.
Yeah.
They just we're like, hey, we're going to hold this thing in the park. Everybody come to the park.
Yeah.
To Acacia Park.
Right.
That's a completely open space to lots of different people, right?
Yeah.
That's a way more democratic place to hold something like that. I agree. But,
I didn't make it to that one.
Yeah, I didn't either because we were busy here. We had the town hall that day, right?
Yeah.
But this is important, like, because it actually democratizes, like, it brings in more voices when you have protests.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I say, so when I'm talking to my friends and family, and they're like, Sean, look, don't give these damn cops a reason to do something to you. And I'm like, well, I'm not. First of all, the second, like, the only reason that it's so important that we go and do these things is because, like, we stepped out and did it, and then other people came because they knew that someone else was talking about it. Like, they didn't know us.
Yeah, exactly.
They were like, oh, yeah, man, I'm going through this and going through that, and they got a red shirt and came down there. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
So,
exactly.
like, like, we were literally a conduit, to that conversation for that person. Like, not, okay, now you come here and you do what we're doing. That wasn't the vibe at all, When the police attacked us, we had homeless people in that crowd.
Yeah.
We had people that were experiencing, turmoil with their housing. They weren't like not exactly homeless just yet, but they're like topsy-turvy with their kids. There was old people that's been fighting this shit for ever. Decades, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And the police just completely bashed them all. You know what I'm saying? So,
but you know what? That spread out in the news.
Exactly. So that's what I was about to say. So then, we said if they would have just left us the hell alone, it would have been a one-day thing.
A little blip.
And the people that were there would have saw, and that's it. But now it's like, people that are paying attention to this stuff, they see what happened. So that the protest is effective, no matter which way it goes.
Right. And that people are like willing to stand up and fight for it. Because like there's so many people that aren't willing to stand up and fight for their shit. You know, they just talk shit online or whatever.
Yeah, and even when they're not expecting to fight, like nobody was expecting to fight them motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? And they still stood up. You know what I'm saying? Like there's people that will do the things that they need to do to get the voice heard. And then I just hope that it gives confidence to others that are seeing it, like, okay, if I would have been there, you know, there would have been 20 more people there or something like that, then or whatever would have been happening, and then the cops wouldn't have been able to, they wouldn't have done what they did. So anyway, But
also the thing with protests too is because it democratizes protests, you get way more voices in there. It actually opens up politics to a broader conversation. So if you think about the protests last summer, 2 years ago, I never would have thought that I would hear defund the police and police abolition as a mainstream conversation that's happening. And that's what protest does. Like the things that we couldn't imagine like 200 years ago, when people got out into the streets and started
taking their lives
off. Exactly. Putting their lives on the line or whatever, their reputations. It's not always just lives, it's your reputation. People, you know.
Livelihoods.
Yeah, exactly. Those extra voices brought in like different ideas of what our society could look like. Because again, if we go back to this housing thing, like the framing of the solutions was limited immediately upon arrival. Here's what we're going to be talking about, and here's how we're going to be talking about it, right? But when more people's voices enter, you get a broader range of ideas that enter politics. But politics is really much more about limiting conversation to what like people in positions of power find acceptable, right? Exactly. And like they're cronies in the political class, right?
Right.
And so when you bring all those people out, you're able to broaden those terms and like in really good ways. You know, back in the early America, even most Northerners didn't think that like slavery going away was an option. It wasn't until like abolitionists were like getting out there being heard, like, no, we need to, we're not asking that Southern slaveholders treat their slaves better. We're saying we need to get rid of this.
Stop this madness.
And at first people are like, that's crazy. That will never go away. There's this conception that the way things are is the way things always will be, right? But that's never been the case. Things always change.
I was just telling somebody about that. Like, America's not always going to be this.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and who knows whatever is going to be the tipping thing, whatever. But, you know, more than likely, the greed, the race, the bigotry, all of these things is what's going to eventually be the downfall of this place. And, you know,
unless we don't do anything about it, then they're just going to continue to like be that way.
Exactly. You're right. It has to change, like evolve. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what, you know, America was able to do through the years. You know, evolve and shit. So anyway, we'll see, man. But it's not always going to be this way.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just not.
And I'm going to take a classic Marxist approach here. Like the whole idea of how change occurs according to Marx too is like that you have, and like you don't have to be a Marxist to actually agree with this, I think, is that you have, like, for him, it was like you have two classes who are in opposition with one another, and there's just going to be conflict between those classes because they have divergent interests, right? The capitalist class wants more to suck more money out of poor people and the working class, and the working class doesn't want that. They want freedom. They want their livelihoods, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so there's a natural conflict that occurs between them, and that conflict in and of itself creates something new. Like the synthesis that comes out of the thesis and the antithesis creates actually something new, right? And so it's just the people who just want peace in society, like whatever, I want peace too. I actually, like, as a person who experiences a lot of conflict, like I understand the desire to just like not want constant conflict. But it's the conflict that like actually drives the change.
You're exactly right. Because like when we saw them cops line up, we were like, oh my fucking God, man.
You get tired of it.
Right? Like, dude, I did not feel like doing that shit.
No, yes, exactly.
Like we just wanted to go walk.
Do
our thing and go to the city council meeting.
I was sort of like actually a high sort of like, this is nice drum beat.
Right, we were having a good time.
Like, totally.
So you're right. Like so like that was reluctant. We did not want that shit. And then, but now it's like, okay, that was good. It was good. I think everything's gonna be all right because from that, and we're, you know what I'm saying. Hopefully, like it'll be fast too, man. Because you know, another thing is, what's the transgender hating city council member that got voted out? Gabler.
Yeah.
She said, government is best when it moves slow.
Right.
You know, things need to take its course, you know? So, and it was like so eye-opening for me, like, shit, you guys want this thing to like,
that's how you want
drag along, you know what I'm saying? And there's never a time that's advantageous for the people. It's not gonna be good shit coming from that for you or your community.
Well, actually,
so protest accelerate it makes them talk about that. Even if you're at the city council meeting and that topic was at the last of the agenda and they bump it up to the first topic, you know what I mean? Like these are the things that happen, and it happens in real life, and you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
and like people, granted, Southers is still really popular for some weird ass reason, but like continued protest continually challenges like the legitimacy of any given regime or whatever, like either a national regime or a local regime, right? So when there's constant protest, people start to be like, see, people are really upset about this. You know, I'm upset. I know why I'm upset, but they're also upset. You know what I'm saying? So there's that constant challenging. But then finally, you know, and I think about this a lot too, and I was happy to find that there is evidence for this. When people protest, and I think about this with me and you, like when you get into a protest, like, well, let's just add, like, what was the first political thing that you did? Like put you on the spiral.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, okay, so it was Philando Castile.
Oh, okay.
When they killed Philando Castile.
And you helped organize a rally, right?
Yeah, we organized a rally, yeah.
So it was actually the spreading of Black Lives Matter protests, right?
Right.
And then that inspired you to organize a protest here, right?
Yeah.
And you have been doing that basically since,
ever
right?
Since then,
and this is like the case when you look at people who have been involved in protests, especially like contentious protest.
Yeah.
It politicizes people to a different extent. And like maybe you're into politics, obviously you pay attention to this stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of people who engage in like contentious politics end up basically becoming political for the rest of their lives. Because once you go out into the streets and witness like the brutality of the police or the way that like city councilors treat you or respond to you, your eyes are opened into how the system actually works, where those like points of contention are, and things like how power actually operates in society. And this gets me back to like, I don't think people actually understand politics.
Right.
Politics is about power.
Right.
It's like, yes, you can choose different approaches. You can try nice and you can try
there's different ways to get it done.
But they actually work best when they're used in unison with one another, right?
Yeah.
And I try and tell people this all the time, like you don't kid yourselves into believing that people are sort of like just gonna like, if you ask nicely, that
go sit at the round table.
Yeah, they're gonna give things up. Obviously, they need to have people in power, if you just want to sit at the same table with them, need to have an understanding of like where you're coming from. But also, some people don't want to sit at the same table. They want to create their own table. They want to make a bigger table. You know what I'm saying? Because their table is very small and limited. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But people who go out and participate in protests become political, and they begin to understand how politics works.
Like they start paying attention, you practice, and then you participate, and you become.
Oh, we were talking about this with education too, right?
Yeah.
You do a thing, and then you step back and you reflect on it, and then you understand that thing better. And I think that's a great point. That's exactly how protest functions for like political education, I think.
For sure, because I definitely did not understand what the hell was going on. Like, I knew just the cops. Like, I was sick of that, whatever the hell was happening, right? And just like you said, just being there and seeing it was like, I was to the moon. And now, like through the years, you see people that came in the same way. I won't say their names, but we know who we're talking about. Like, they radicalized
dozens over the years.
Over and over. And it's like, that's how it's done, right? So, there's a lot of different reasons why protesting is. Oh, but I wanted to go when you said that they got to work in unison. You know, like, and I learned this from you, that you don't criticize anyone's activism. Like, if their activism is valuable somewhere, somehow, you know what I'm saying?
Especially publicly. That's the thing that gets me.
Yeah. I'm sure, you know, sharing like,
you discuss
stuff
amongst
with
yourselves,
people, with each other, but exactly, like denigrating what someone is doing is just not advantageous to anything that you're doing, no matter what. Even if, like, I didn't like what Wavy was doing, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it was just like, I don't know. I haven't heard
you
know what? I don't know. Was there any good that came from that?
I mean, yes. Well, so
it was like
I don't think Wavy watches the show.
Job, like a complete blow up.
I wish we could have like a memory thing here and like pull up his image, but I don't.
Of him like hugging the cop with his dreads and shit.
But like, he's not in politics. I don't know. Maybe he is still. I don't like. But as much as I was very critical of their approach, because, you know, and there is the reality that sometimes it conflicts with your own approach, right? And so you do, and whatever, everybody wants their way to be the way that
works.
Yeah. But, I mean, you know, those LETAC people were at Chinook the other day for Yolanda's town hall.
Yeah, the town hall.
Something like that where people actually have to, like, get up there and listen to people's criticisms of the existence of LETAC and like what LETAC can and can't do. I don't know. That was the existence of LETAC is actually like, politically. I
want to say
it's illustrative. It teaches us how power works again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That whole thing about what happened last summer taught us about how power works. You know, a lot of people were out in the streets and they had a lot of different agendas because it was democratized. A certain group of people who, like, I'm just going to say they were co-opted, okay? They were co-opted because they were made to believe, and maybe they believed this all along, that was the only thing that they could possibly do. Right? And so then they were like, and the way co-optation works is basically like, hey, buddy, you're the one that understands this.
You get this,
right?
You're the community.
Exactly. And so, like, then when they created LETAC, a bunch of people now get to see, like, well, what the fuck does LETAC even do? Like, even LETAC itself acknowledges, like,
we don't do shit.
They're like, we don't really have that much power to do
like
anything. You know what I'm saying?
And then, like, you know, that town hall, you're right, man. I'm glad you brought that up real quick. We're going to get ready to wrap up. But I think that them being there, that was the most impactful thing that LETAC did since they became LETAC. That was, you know what I'm saying? And hopefully they hit us up at the end of the thing and said that they were gonna try to do another, like, a series of these things at the center. So you know, the moral of the story is, man, what is the moral of the story, John?
I think the moral of the story is, like, you know, and here's the thing, CSPD is clearly, like, attempting to scare people from participating in contentious politics, like in street protest. But here's the thing, like, you can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, sorry, CSPD, this is never going to end. This is how democratic politics actually works. And when you're trying to, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's going to backfire anyway. Like, when you try to stop it, actually all you're doing is exposing how power operates and exposing what side you're on. But you're also exposing people to the message much more. But also, like, I think a lot of people in Colorado Springs and a lot of people in the country right now are like, I think they're a little tired because it was the Trump years were exhausting.
Hey, I saw this thing. It said there was like this guy resting in the front of the picture, and in the back there was this dude running real hard like this, and it said, "Me trying to process 2020." And
that's forward.
2022, 4 months away. Like, wait, exactly. What the fuck? I'm
people
not even
are like,
over 2020 yet.
Exactly. People are legitimately exhausted. But, like, I do think that CSPD has, like, scared some people, and I understand why people are scared, because they're fucking with people so fucking much. But
they're terrorizing folks. Man.
Right. But, like, if you really believe in what you're trying to do, like, you just kind of have to be out there and do it. And plus, it's fun.
Exactly.
Like, I have to say, I've met some of the best people, and you just, like, when you're out in a protest and you're experiencing things that are dangerous together, we talk about this, like, your comrades in the military, right? You probably have a pretty strong emotional bond with people that you were, like, in the military with, because, like, it creates strong emotional bonds between people, and I think that's important. Like, when you're writing sternly worded letters, you don't actually get that emotional bond.
And like you're not even emotional.
Yeah, exactly. You actually start to form a really strong community of people that, like, as much as like you may not, like, we actually disagree on shit all the time. Just yesterday, in fact, we're all getting contentious with each other.
Yeah. Over the coleslaw.
Over the coleslaw. Exactly. But it's like, I don't know, there's just that like emotional bond that's there that's just like, well, whatever. This is sort of like my comrade or my brother or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of like how I am with my own family.
Right.
You know, like we bicker, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that another thing, man, because if people is paying attention to this, man, like John and I, we'll get on here. We talked about this, and just kick my leg if you want me to shut up. But I feel like we started Just Cause, right? And John and I, we talk shit. We're like we're out front with our we just say what we're thinking, right? Open book type dudes, and we are very much willing to go out and do these things that we talk about, and we will organize protests to accomplish these things that we want to accomplish, if we need to, and if there's time, there's things that happen that we might say, it's not the right time to do that shit, but we really wanted to, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But that's not our goal. Isn't to go out and fight cops.
No.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want to go out and like, hey, no matter what, we're gonna get into it with this cop and get arrested.
It actually kind of sucks.
Like, we don't want that part. You know what I'm saying? That part is what they do to us. You know what I'm saying? That part is what happens when we're trying to accomplish our goal. You know what I mean? Right. So, as you guys as you watch this stuff, I need you to But I'm just saying, I'm talking to the community, to the people. Like, I don't want you all to think that is what is happening here because everyone isn't around us all the time. Right. Doesn't have one-on-one conversations with us, but when you can. So, anyway, keep that in mind. Like that the protest is exactly what we were saying just then. That's exactly why we do the stuff that we're doing, because we're trying to accomplish goals for our community, and that's it. Exactly. So, and what happens with the cops is because of what they do, because of their answer to us. It's that simple. You know what I'm saying?
And let's not remember to let's not start blaming the victims. Like, well, this is your guys' fault.
Right.
This happened. It's but no, you don't blame abuse victims.
Yeah, exactly.
You place the blame squarely where it lies.
We're in America, dude. Like, you can protest. That's a protected activity. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? There is nothing illegal about gathering. Now, they'll put things in place, right? You can't walk here. You can't stand there. You can't say this. You can't wear that.
Right.
You can't wave your red flags. These things that you can't do. Right. You know what I'm saying?
But you should take those down.
Oh my God! Fuck you! I'm gonna fly these. I'm hang one on my fucking car. And the thing is, these are the things that you can't allow them to tell you that you can't do. You can't let them do that, because I don't want to sound like they're gonna take all our guns guy, but they will be telling you what the fuck to do.
Yeah, that's what they've been doing. Actually, this is what's got them so upset, because for a while they were like, I think we got everything under control.
Yeah.
But then there's been this explosion of protest activity again, and like, fuck.
Yeah, we got to stomp this shit out. You know what I'm saying? And instead of how about we talk about this housing situation? How about we figure out how to build more than 1,000 units a year or whatever the fuck? Like, let's do that.
Right.
Let's not let the rich folks come to your fucking city council meeting and then you vote against a 400-unit fucking affordable housing unit complex. So anyway, where is that place gonna go? It's just not going nowhere, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So fuck you. Anyway. All right, man.
You're talking about Garden of the Gods.
The Garden of the Gods 24 project.
Yeah, I'm pretty over. This is just a side note. I'm pretty over rich fucking people just saying no, you can't build apartments here because less desirable folks might move here. Fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
not your fucking place.
Exactly.
Anyway,
apartments are fine.
They're just fine.
They're actually when we first moved to Pennsylvania from Boston, and we moved into a house in a big house in Pennsylvania, because it's old cheap ass Victorians that you can get there.
Yeah.
Atticus was really scared and stressful. Sorry, Atticus.
Atticus. This is the first show that Atticus.
I know. I actually feel like that's been affecting me emotionally.
Yeah.
Like every day I come home, I'm like, oh, Atticus is.
God dang, man. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, man. You just made me almost cry, man. You gave me a little snivel nose.
But like, it's actually kind of nice. It was nice for him to grow up in apartments because he had like just a ready-made group of friends and community, like growing up in apartments. Actually, they're really nice places.
Right.
To grow up. I also wanted to point out, like, as much as we do protest, we do a lot of other stuff, and I just think that maybe a lot of that other stuff isn't like seen by the community, which is really annoying because like we actually have a lot of positive things. Well, I mean, I think protest is positive, but a lot of people see that as conflictual.
Like the whole thing is positive from start to finish. Most of the time,
but
all the time.
We have a good time, like down at the Chinook Center, for example.
We got a birthday coming up.
Yeah, we do have a birthday bash coming up on September 3rd, everybody. I hope to see you all there.
Yeah, at the Chinook Center.
Sean's going to be cooking, so you know it's going to be good food.
We figured out, we argued over the coleslaw, so we know what we're going to
figure out the coleslaw?
Yeah, just tell them we did. We got to figure it out. The reminders are performing.
Reminders are performing. And come down and meet a bunch of the groups, because there's a lot of good groups doing good things down at the Chinook Center.
Yeah, man.
Every day, I love the weekends because like people just come down, they're having their meetings, maybe some food is made.
Right.
People are just kind of hanging out, having a good time.
Summertime vibes going on.
Totally.
Yeah, man, it's dope.
Exactly.
Hey, I think that's how we need to start our shows from now on. Let's
with the coleslaw, or
well, we could talk about coleslaw too, but let's talk about the groups.
Right.
We should update people what they
what
did.
Every group is
what the groups are doing over
Come
there.
down actually though for a birthday bash and figure out
and
what
meet
they're
them, man.
up
It's
to.
a bunch of good people. All right, man. We ran
cool.
over that time. Maybe.
I mean,
we're gonna have to figure out how. I think we got to edit that a little bit. But anyway,
I think it's fine.
All right, goodbye, guys.
All right, peace out, everybody.